But after the last 2 years, I can no longer say that. I have been a proud Canadian, proud that this country stands for liberty, for justice, equality, diversity, and prosperity. But these last few years, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I've been less and less able to recognize these values. After watching our government's complete disregard for our basic fundamental rights and freedoms, the destruction of our economy, the division in our society, my eyes are now wide open. There's no going back. There's been a complete lack of ethical leadership and unnecessary overreach from every level of government. And as I've been campaigning door to door, the repeated sentiment that I'm getting is a lack of trust and the feeling of betrayal by our government. I've been hearing the hardships people are experiencing, the difficulties families are having in supporting their families with the rising inflation. My heart aches for the suffering we've all experienced. We've all lost so much, relationships with family, with friends. We've lost our jobs. Small businesses have had to close or they're barely hanging on. There's rising mental health issues and people are concerned for their children's future. We've lost our bodily autonomy, our free speech, and for some, their faith in a future worth living. But the most consistent message I've been getting is people want change. And it is time for change. We need to bring power back to the people. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, but we're getting a whole lot more of the same. It's time for a new vision. We need ethical leadership, fiscal responsibility, and much more transparency in all levels of government. There has to be accountability in government. Other parties are talking about building roads and infrastructure or creating more mandates, etc. But we need to begin working with repairing our broken system that allows big corporations to benefit from our tax money. Legislation needs to be passed that will prevent future governments and corporations from hijacking our democracy and running our province to their benefit while we're flipping the bill and suffering the consequences. We need safeguards in place so that no government can ever overstep our rights again. We need more power to the people and more fear back in the government. The New Blue Party is committed to seeing this through. Other key platform goals are push to ban lobbyists in party politics, getting rid of the $100 million taxpayer subsidy of political parties, promoting a free press, defunding the CBC, reducing HST down to 10%. We need it. Reforming education and offering alternative school tax credits for families. Restoring dignity and transparency in our healthcare system by expanding early treatment for COVID-19, clearing out the backlog of procedures, rehiring our healthcare workers, and offering choices in services. Also, repealing all COVID-19 mandates. With the New Blue, we have have an opportunity here to come together stronger than ever and build a future we can all prosper from. It's time to unite and create the community we wish for. We should not have to vote for the lesser evil. We should be able to have confidence in those we elect to represent our voice, our values, our vision for the future. A vote for New Blue is a vote for strength, stability, and good government. On June 2nd, vote New Blue and allow me to bring your voice to Queen's Park. Let's make change. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I don't think there's anything left to say. I don't know, it was perfect. I really enjoyed it. In fact, good. Melanie, your details really good. I try to make a little bit of lightness of this because I spent first hand I enjoy it. Okay, I enjoy talking to people every day. That's what I really do enjoy. And I say Melanie did a great job of going all the points that we need to cover in this election. And I'm here because of my family. I want to make sure that my family, my grandkids have a good place to live when we're gone, you know, and that's what I'm about, right? So it's not a whole lot of other ideas other than just creating a better life, right? And I think that's the most important thing of all. We also have a representative from Michigan Cochrane here. That's Garry here. He's been down for here, representing us as well, so he may have a little bit to say. I'll pass the microphone to him.
We'll see the guy in the parking lot.
Before he thinks he's just gonna take off like that. You are gonna represent Sudbury and take the New Blue above and beyond, right? We're all dying to know, what do you use on your beard?
It's just the way it is.
Serious question. So, for real though, I just feel like this is such a big task. Melanie, Sheldon, we're giving you the keys, right? There's a lot of questions in this room. There's a lot of people that are already decided that they're voting New Blue. It's the best option. It's gonna get the job done. It's our way to make our voice heard. We're giving you the pen. We're giving you the keys. We're giving you the email to email whoever we need to email because we've written them and they're not working, right? So, what would you say, Sheldon, to somebody in this room, or two people in this room, or the entire room, if they said, what makes you most passionate about seeing not just Canada, but making Sudbury New Blue? Like, what makes you most passionate? You mentioned family. Talk about your family. And what specifically do you want to see change in the future?
I think the healthcare is a big issue. I was just talking to a lady right here that lost her dad during the COVID, and I lost my wife a few years ago. And it was a tough time. And I can feel for that. You know, it's not the way it should be. And so healthcare is the biggest issue as far as I'm concerned. Mental health, with every issue of that, it's just
We need Corey.
the mandates has
We
been
need
hard on
Corey.
everybody. And everybody has to get their life back. It's that important. And Sudbury is the hub as far as I'm concerned of Ontario. There's no other place. Toronto has got lots of people, but Sudbury is the core.
To represent me on a political level. Because a lot of us here share the same ideas, the same views, but what makes you, besides this, I love the beard. Besides the beard and the nice getup that you got going on, like, why are you the guy for the job?
I find that's an easy question. I've worked all my life for a boss that expected me to get the job done. And I think that as a representative in government, I should be representing you. And you guys are my boss. And so if you guys want a job done, it's up to me to get it done. And that's the way I've lived all my life.
missed a lot of that. I think that's not a secret. But I like the response you got. And I'm putting my faith, my confidence in you getting the job done too. Let's give it up, guys. Sheldon, Pressey. I've been asked to introduce this guy with the cool look. I'm counting on you. No pressure, but let the people know why you are the guy for the job. Is that okay? Okay, take the mic.
Thank you very much. It's not just you that are counting on us. We are counting on all of you and everybody else on June 2nd to put new blue MPPs in Queen's Park to represent you, to represent your families, to represent your businesses, to represent our industries, to fight back for our rights that have been trampled upon for so long. Myself, like so many others in the MPPs that are the candidates that are running for the new blue, for so long, we are frustrated, just like all of you, we're frustrated citizens with what the rules and the mandates and the passports. None of this has made any sense to us. Why is the government telling us what and when and how we're allowed to live our lives? The government is there to build highways, to run our economy, stay out of our personal lives. Don't tell us we have to put a shot in our arm to get a job or to keep a job. It's not right. On June 2nd, I look forward to the news coming out that, oh my God, why is there a yellow and blue wave going across this province? We don't understand where this came from. Like many others, like Sheldon, the reason I put my name in, I have my first grandson, 2.5 years old. He is the light of my life right now. He has already got debt on his back from the bad decisions of this previous government and all the Liberal and NDPs before him. We need to fix this problem now. We got to stop kicking the ball down the road. We've got to make it better for our kids, our grandkids, and everybody else to follow. Let's get Ontario back up off its knees, onto its feet, and become the powerhouse of Canada that it once was. So, with no further ado, the man of the hour is here. Please let me introduce Jim Karahalios. Anybody know the theme to Eye of the Tiger?
Thank you everybody for having me. It's a great turnout. We thought we were going to have a few people, a little meet and greet, but this is exceeding all expectations. Thank you so much for committing your evening to hear about what we want to do to make Ontario a better place, because we believe the best is yet to come. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
What do you think? Are you enjoying this? Oh, awesome. What do you think of your mom?
We have some great candidates. Garry led the way from Sturgeon Falls on the drive over. And you heard from Sheldon and Melanie and our team in this region and across Ontario. It was fantastic. 124 candidates. And we're very, very proud in our first election to have a candidate in every single riding. And Garry was leading the way, and I'm traveling with Jackie on our team. And Jackie said, look at the Canadian Shield. Look at the beautiful formation of the rocks. And it dawned on me that the New Blue Party is like the shield against the radical left in Ontario politics. That is our role. And being a shield to the radical aggressive left is tough business. They don't make it easy. And they haven't made it easy on my wife, Belinda Karahalios. She's canvassing today in the riding of Cambridge, looking for re-election. I'm sorry she can't be here with you. We are splitting up to try to cover as much ground as possible and to ensure a strong local campaign so she can win re-election in her riding of Cambridge. It was almost 2 years ago that Doug Ford brought forward his lockdown bill. And everyone just blindly showed up at Queen's Park on the PC side and voted in favor of it. But Belinda had the vision and the courage to vote no. And she stood up and she voted against that lockdown bill. And for a few years now, for those of you maybe who haven't followed us as closely, we did our best to change from within the existing establishment parties. We led the Axe the Carbon Tax campaign starting in 2017 to get the PC party to change course, not being in favor of a carbon tax. Then they introduced something called voter fraud in their internal party elections. And we thought, that's not a good idea. So we tried to challenge him on that and tell him to right the ship, get it straight. Working from the inside. Have you all heard of that expression? You got to work within the system, they say. Work it from the inside. We did our best to work from the inside of the establishment parties. And the wrath that we endured was, it required more than a shield to push back from. I'll say that much. They sued my family, me, and our campaigns at the end of 2017. And we dug down deep, and my wife said, you're going to challenge them in court and you're going to win. And 6 weeks later, with a few days before Christmas, we were fortunate enough with a gift. The judge threw the court case out and said they don't have any facts in any legal proof. But the wrath of these guys, they don't stop. And so my wife ran for office because Doug Ford, he promised he was going to right the ship. He was going to stand up for parents. He was going to fight against the carbon tax. He was going to allow the grassroots to have a voice. We all remember that? And in Cambridge, my wife said we need someone on the right side of the issues to be the candidate. But when she got to Queen's Park, my goodness, the underbelly. The underbelly of politics. She stood against the drug injection site in her riding of Cambridge. And the wrath of the PC establishment. How dare you stand up for your constituents? How dare you stand on principle? They said to her. She presented a private member's bill to make voter fraud in internal party elections illegal. Can you believe it? In Ontario, we don't have any laws on the books against voter fraud in internal party elections? A hole in the law. Common sense. And again, the wrath. They said, how dare you present a private member's bill? Who do you think you are? But she kept pushing forward, representing her constituents and standing on principle. And eventually with that lockdown bill, when she voted against it, they not only removed Belinda from caucus, they removed 19 others from the Cambridge PC Riding Association. That's when we learned that there's no working from the inside. Working from the inside is just selling out. That's what they want. Stay silent, stay quiet. We saw other politicians follow Belinda. She took the lead against the lockdown bill. And others came forward and followed, and that was great. The more voices, the better against the radical left, whether they're radical left in the PC party, the Liberal Party, or the NDP. And because of the support from people like you, I just saw Colleen for the first time, and others across this province, Derek and Melanie, Sheldon and Garry, we started the New Blue Party a year and a half ago. And when we started the party, I still remember they said, a couple of the media outlets called and said, well, the PC said they're just going to attract the people that are into conspiracy theories, Brian Patterson said. President of the PC party. They don't have much going on outside of their riding at Cambridge. Maybe they'll have a few people in Cambridge supporting them, but surely not in Sudbury or Nickel Belt, they thought. But with your attendance here today, and in the stops we did on the way up, it's clear that, boy, the New Blue Party has strength far beyond just Cambridge. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for proving them wrong a year and a half later. And they said, just fringe what they're talking about, these two, this husband and wife team, fringe stuff, radical things. Like a husband defending his wife. How dare they? This is crazy in this modern society. How can a husband defend his wife? There you go. There. And is this the PC ad? Yeah, this is a PC ad. It's amazing when election time comes around, they use the same thing that we've been saying. When election time comes around, the PCs sound all good. Oh, this is great stuff. Yeah, that's exactly what we need. But once they're in power, they betray the very values and principles that they claim to hold.
Backroom deals.
Backroom deals run the show at Queen's Park. Who said that? Thank you. I didn't even ask you to say that. Thank you. Thank you. A drink on me. Thank you for doing that. Backroom deals. And the idea that you can have a political opinion without fear of retribution that the PCs say they're for, they issue the retribution. But we know that's not a fringe idea. The idea to run for public office with the expectation, whether it's a general election, a nomination, a leadership, or for party president, that the election will be decided with free and fair votes. That's not a fringe idea. And the idea that you should never be ashamed of believing in an almighty God. That is not a fringe idea. And we see Doug Ford and the PCs now with election time. Oh, we agree with that, absolutely. We're all for that. Yes, absolutely. They want us to forget about the last 4 years. They're running away from their record.
Are you guys holding food?
And we saw some PC apologists for the last 2 or 3 months. You see those? Has everyone heard of Bill 67?
Yes.
An NDP MPP stands up and says they're going to fix our school system because it's systemically racist, they said. Public schools, systemically racist. And she stood up and she presented a private member's bill. And the solution for them on the NDP side was to fine students, parents, or others for their subconscious racism. And we'll define that subconscious racism sometime later, not right now. And again, Belinda had the courage to stand as the only MPP and vote no against that Bill 67. And she raised awareness to the issue, and 2 weeks later she went back to Queen's Park and she forced the PCs to turn their position. Where 2 weeks earlier they said, oh no, this is a great bill. 3 of the MPPs stood up. The Junior Minister of Education, Sam Oosterhoff, stood up with all of his Christian credentials and said, I can't wait for this bill to become law. But the PC apologists on the YouTube channels, the professors that came out, they all said, well, they probably didn't know what the bill had. Right? Maybe they didn't read the bill. They read the bill, and they were excited about the bill. Until Belinda presented them a shield in the legislature, and 2 weeks later got them to reverse course and say, oh no, that bill never become law. With your support for the last year and a half, we've kept moving forward and we've kept our commitments. We said we would start a New Blue Party of Ontario because Ontarians need another option and another choice.
Thank you so much.
We said we would challenge the left, balance the narrative, and change the course. We've done that in the last 2 years, and with your support, we will keep doing that. We see the evidence every day. So many opportunities were presented to us to quit. They encouraged us to quit. You can't make a change. It's impossible. Quit. I'll be honest with you, sometimes I thought about it. I said, why are we doing this? Why are we keep pushing forward? But I had a wife, and you got to keep your wife happy. I think that's a rule. Get up as fast as you can. And when your wife says you keep moving forward, we're not quitting, you keep moving forward and you don't quit. And when she says Derek wants you in Sudbury, Melanie, Sheldon, and Garry are waiting, you get up and you go to Sudbury. Where the land. Because if we quit, I wouldn't have been able to see Belinda challenge them on Bill 67 and get the NDP and the Liberals and the PCs to back down on that bill. And that's a victory when we get them to back down on that bill.
That's right.
If we quit, we wouldn't have been around to watch Doug Ford play TV ads in the election campaign warning about a future lockdown. That one of the other parties, why is he doing that? That's a victory when we see Doug Ford running away from his record the last 4 years. And if we had quit, I wouldn't have seen all the beautiful new blue lawn signs on our drive from Cambridge here today, through Aurelia and Huntsville and Sturgeon Falls, all the way here, Nickel Belt and Sudbury. That's a victory when we see those new blue lawn signs. The values and principles that we are advocating for and we share are shared by Ontarians in every corner of this province. And our challenge is to let them know that we are out there. We are running against a couple of parties whose brands are 100 years old. But every day, every step we take, because we know there's no elevator to get from the first floor to where we're going. There's no easy shortcut. It's step by step. But every step we take, we build momentum. When we tell them about the new blueprint, and we tell Ontarians, we're going to get rid of vaccine passports, not by just making it an option, we're going to ban their use in the public and private sector. Ontario voters increasingly like what they hear. When we let them know that Doug Ford used that state of emergency after the trucker convoy to shut down 39 trucker businesses without due process, and they punished churches that dare to defy their orders, when we let them know the new blueprint offers restitution to get those trucking businesses back and get those churches opening, because there's no such thing as Zoom church, we all know that. Ontario voters are enthusiastic. And we can't stop there, because they're running away from their lockdown mandate. We need at least one provincial party that stands up for free press. The Toronto Star, you're all Toronto Star readers, subscribers? It was 2 years ago they were going bankrupt. How great would it have been if they went bankrupt? We wouldn't have had to see the cover attacking the unvaccinated, as they like to say. At the time, 2 years ago, they were going bankrupt. They said they had a business plan to get back on their feet. You know what their plan was? They went and hired Dalton McGuinty's executive director, a liberal lobbyist. They hired him, and he said, I got a great idea. Let's go to the Doug Ford PCs, because we're all in it together. And the PCs gave the Toronto Star an online gambling license to fund their operations on the very backs of the people the Toronto Star pretend to defend. That's how the Toronto Star is going to fund their operation going forward. No one else will tell you about this. Establishment party certainly not. We're the only party with the platform that says we are going to scrap that online gambling license for the Toronto Star. But we can't stop there. There's lots more. We're the only party that's committed to putting back on the agenda tax relief, starting with reducing the HST from 13 to 10%, and calling out Doug Ford for that secret industrial carbon tax that he put in place when he cut a deal with Justin Trudeau way before the Supreme Court made its ruling. We've got to get our economy back up and running, That starts with reducing hydro rates. And the only way to reduce those hydro rates is to take down those wind turbines. They turned our electricity grid into a banana republic, the Liberals and the PCs. And finally, on health and education. Where Doug Ford said he was going to fix the healthcare system, we have a backlog longer than existed before he took office. And they encouraged hospitals to put in mandates. We have been calling for over a year for the nurses to be rehired, and that's what we're going to push for. Those nurses that lost their jobs to be rehired. And on education, even though Belinda stopped Bill 67, at the school board level and a couple school boards in southwestern Ontario, critical race theory is still being put in place. The idea that we're all subconsciously racist and our institutions are systemically racist. We got to get critical race theory out of our public school system. And for those parents, though, that can't wait because they need solutions now in September for their kids, it's high time we fight for tax credits for those who pick alternative schooling methods, whether it's homeschooling or private schooling. Those are the promises and the commitments that we're fighting for, and we will keep fighting for, but we need your help. We got a week to go. There's no shortcuts. The media is not going to make it easy for us. They've been ignoring us for a year and a half. But the way to get the word out is through canvassing and putting up signs. One voter at a time.
Here you go, buddies.
We need to meet 10 million people plus in Ontario. We're not going to get it all done in the first election. But every time we meet one person, you tell a neighbor on either side of the house, they tell their neighbors, we don't know where it stops. And Melanie and Garry and Sheldon need your help. Share our message, spread the message. Let your family and friends and your neighbors in other ridings across Ontario know about the New Blue Party. And every step we take, we will gain momentum and we will keep getting stronger and stronger. There's only so long that they can hide us in the polls. The other category will eventually turn New Blue. And the single digits will turn into double digits. And the more people are made aware that they don't have to put up with these corrupt establishment parties anymore, they will come out and vote. And together we will continue to challenge the left, balance the narrative, change the course. Belinda will get re-elected in Cambridge. Others will join her as New Blue MPPs. And the best will come because we know the best is yet to come, and Ontario's future, the best of Ontario, is ahead of us, not behind us. So thank you, everybody, for having us. God bless you. Thank you, Savoie. It's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you so much.
So, I was saying this before you got here, Jim. But wow, you've got words. And they're so well packaged. I can't do what you do, but just like I commented on Sheldon's facial hair. I mean, you got sweet hair, man. Yeah, right? You look like a leader. Like you look like you got the, listen. We are proud to be in your presence. When I'm listening to Jim speak, and I know the background of Belinda getting kicked out, right? We have the chance here to be a part of something magical, something theatrical, something amazing. Like this is the stuff that really good books and movies are made of, right? Belinda gets kicked out for doing what is honorable and courageous, only to come with her angry husband now taking the torch. Hey, come on. Listen, if that doesn't get you going, right? We talk about being on the right side of history. If this story doesn't get you going, I don't know what else will. We can talk smack about Ford, the Liberals all day, but listen, there's something new here with Jim and Melinda and these awesome kids. Let's give it up for these candidates again here. Man, Sheldon, Garry. Man, oh man. This is, something's happening. Right? And I love how you're being such a realist, Jim, when you talk about, the numbers they might not even, if you go tonight, you look, there's only green, red, blue, and poop orange on there right now. That's all they show. But eventually, we'd be a part of something, be a part of the change. So, let's give it up one more time. We're going to do some Q&A, I think, eh? So, I'm going to lead off with a question, because I wanted to ask a question tonight. Is that okay? Perfect, great. When you're holding the mic, you can get away with a few things. But listen, I've talked to a few people tonight, Jim. This question's for Jim. If you have a question for Melanie, Garry, for Sheldon, Jim, or if it's for Belinda, Jim can answer it, right? That's how it works, right, Jim? So, please be thinking of it now, and I'll come to you. I think the wireless mic will carry. If it doesn't carry, then we'll find out once I get there. Okay? But my question, Jim, is, I'm going through a personal health crisis myself. There are people in this room that have lost loved ones. Our healthcare system, we know, has been a problem since before COVID. People are dying without dignity. People are still not able to gain access to the hospitals to watch their loved ones pass on. It is beyond deplorable to be growing up, to be living in a Canada that allows this type of disgusting behavior, and it's mandated, and it's okay, and everybody's kind of pretending. So what I want to know is, what in the world are we going to do about these, not just the mandates in general, but this terrible healthcare system that we have, and the rules that are hurting Canadians and allowing Canadians to die without dignity here in Ontario?
It's a fantastic question, and it's right in the new blueprint, restoring dignity in our healthcare system. I know it, I guess, a little bit up close and personal. I wasn't dying, but I had a tumor in my right leg, diagnosed in late 2020, and it took me out of commission for most of 2021 in terms of walking and being able to move around. And when I was doing my, I had 3 surgeries as a result to reconstruct it. And Belinda could only visit me on one of the days each time on the 3 surgeries because of these fake COVID rules or whatever they. I don't understand how you can come one day, but you can't come the next or the day before. And the pressure, right? Like the science changes every other day, and I can't imagine what that would have been like if I was dying. Like it was hard enough to deal with. Just being sick and not being able to get up and fend for myself. And so I can't imagine what it would have been like being in that situation and watching a loved one fade away and not being able to be next to them. The worst stories that we've had to deal with in the last year are people calling us in those situations. And it's nefarious that a couple of things are very nefarious of what's going on with many things, but 2 things that are coming on in the healthcare system. First, the idea that Doug Ford is saying it's up to the hospitals, I don't have anything to do with it. They pushed the hospitals to put in these mandates. They advocated for them in the legislature. It hasn't been widely reported on, and now they're stepping back and say it's up to the individual hospitals. That's not enough. They created the problem. The provincial government has to step in and say, no more of this. No more denying people access to their loved ones. No more of these mandates in hiring nurses and creating backlogs, firing nurses and creating backlogs. And that's why we've got to keep pushing and advocating and raising awareness to it. So before we get to the point where we have the ability to change the law, there's a lot of stuff we can do in between, which is raising awareness to these issues and pushing. And a couple of things that we did in terms of pushing, almost a year ago, we were the first in radio interviews to start talking about banning the use of vaccine passports, and then other MPPs stepped forward, had private member bill opportunities and presented them, which was fantastic. The other thing we did was Belinda found out at St. Joe's in Hamilton they were providing early treatment for COVID, like a big secret. No, and we started advocating for it in radio interviews and in our emails saying, hey, St. Joe's in Hamilton has early treatment for COVID, this should be widely available. And so when we do that, the press doesn't have a choice but to cover it, because they can't hide it forever. And when you kind of blow the whistle on it, they got to acknowledge it. It's the other nefarious thing is the fact that they withheld early treatment, and they allowed it in a couple places in Ontario, only with certain conditions, age being one, comorbidities. It should have been widely available from the outset, and that's the way to deal with people's fears in terms of getting COVID. Regardless of whether the fears are rational or not. As a government, you should, even the ones that can be available and readily available. So that's where it starts. Hey.
You do hear what you say. You always hear the same way. It's one-sided debate. Why the government does not allow the other side to give their opinions about this kind of disease, whatever they call it. But I hear from you. I'm not ashamed to tell you, I'm sorry, but one-sided. Why not two-sided? If we have the freedom, it must be two, not only one mind.
The reason why they don't want to allow debate is because they're hiding something. They're fine if you express opinions that are false, and then they spread all over the news, oh, misinformation. But when it's true, they don't like it. So the only way to counter a debate is to suppress the truth and to defame and shame. Just the other day, we made unrelated to healthcare, we made a video in front of the Waterloo Region District School Board where a teacher was shamed for coming to a meeting of the trustees and daring to ask questions about books at the library of the school and whether they were age appropriate. And so they shut her down. They took the video of the meeting off the web. They shut her down, they kicked her out of the meeting, and they named and shamed her. And she wasn't even taking a position as to whether the books were right or wrong. She was just saying, asking the question, is this age appropriate? Our challenge and our objective with the New Blue Party is to raise awareness to the issues the establishment doesn't want the public to know about. That's our objective. There's so many things to talk about. We're doing our best to cover all the issues, but we have to keep challenging them, and we can't fall for the traps, because sometimes the government puts out fake information on purpose so that their critics will jump on it, and then they can cast us all off as spreading fake information. The best one on misinformation that I can tell you is Belinda did a householder in her riding talking about the decision of local city council to put a drug injection site in Cambridge. And the constituents in Cambridge don't want it. And all she did was put out a mailer piece that said, here's their decision, constituents don't want it, what do you think? Here's a survey online on my website. And she got attacked by the mayor and the establishment media, the Toronto Star in Cambridge, and it's called the Waterloo Record there because they disguise that they're the Toronto Star. And they said, oh, this is misinformation. So she wasn't even stating a position. She was asking people to answer to a survey, and they were labeling it as misinformation. Think of that. You're asking people to take a survey, and they're saying your survey is misinformation. That's a whole other level now. We're not even debating. We're just asking questions. So this is what we're up against, and why the New Blue Party of Ontario has to act as the shield to the radical left. Because we have to say, that's enough. We're done with the cancel culture, we're done with the naming and shaming, and we're fighting back.
Everyone say the shield. I love that. The shield. Kids need protection these days. Families need protection. Let's go, New Blue, baby.
So my question is, we all know in Northern Ontario that Ontario stops somewhere near Barrie. There ain't nothing north of Barrie. Wilderness. What does New Blue have in store for us, besides all the wonderful things you've already described?
So Garry said the best fairness for the North, but I'm not going to pretend that I know all the answers because I've never lived in the North. I'm also careful to use the term the North because if we talk to our candidates in our riding Pressey Thunder Bay, they'll say, well, you weren't in the North, you're just in Sudbury, that's the South. So I gotta be careful with the terms North and South. Fundamentally, the governments of all stripes extract resources and the revenue from the resources in the North, and then take all of it and spend it right downtown Toronto. And the North needs to have more control of its economy so that they benefit from the resources in the North, and so that the revenue generated in the North isn't used to buy votes with corporate welfare and go train lines to Kitchener-Waterloo that no one's going to take to buy votes on the left. And we need a New Blue Party of Ontario that it's beyond fairness. It's local communities know best what's for them, and enjoying the fruits of one's own labor is not just your individual income, it's also the region of where you live and the region benefiting from the fruits of their own labor.
Well, my name is with my daughter and grandson and my husband, and I think you'd have to be loony to not agree with every single thing that you said as far as your platform, and I do wholeheartedly agree with everything. However, when my husband and I and some of our children went to spend a lot of time at the convoy in the freezing winter, and then the day that I don't even want to call him our prime minister, but in any case, he brought in his thugs and goons and literally forced us out of our city. So after having spent a lot of time there already, I felt very defeated. And I have said this before, and I say it over and over and over again. So my question is, how do we fight the demonic Davos World Economic Forum criminals when they have the fake propaganda machine in their pocket, they have religion in their pocket, they have the medical mafia in their pocket, and they have all the weapons? And my question is, every day, how do we fight that?
For a reminder, a shield won't cut it for this one, man.
But the truth will.
Should I just leave it at that?
I mean, you can only keep putting the truth out there.
Look how much effort they have to put to clamp down the people. Tremendous effort. International bodies like you just described, conferences, lots of money, ads, censoring, shutting people down. One MPP who was a mom in 2018 who stood up and said, I'm going to run in my riding in Cambridge. She stands up, not an angry woman like her husband, like Garry said. She stands up and votes no, and they all go running scared. They can't even defend the bills they put forward. One person voting no in the legislature of 124. The challenge is for us. I'm also suspect sometimes of some of the articles and stories we hear about the international bodies in the way that they are framed. We have to oppose this idea that Justin Trudeau flies off to international meetings and sets up health policy for the entire country. And we have to flesh out who's loyal to the World Health Organization or the World Economic Forum, and who's loyal to Canadian voters. We have to do that. But we cannot read those articles and feel defeated. Because that's what they want. They want you to believe it's over. They want you to believe that the power is overseas somewhere at some special meeting that you're not invited to, and there's nothing you can do, so pack it up. And don't run any candidates.
That's where the Charter of Rights comes in here today. Remind me that the sovereign nation.
And it's a political question that requires political pushback at the polls. Because the one thing, the rallies are great. We were there at the trucker convoy the first weekend. We got the mic and the speakers. We put it on a flatbed. Jackie was with another one of our staff, Jackie and Maggie, were looking with our local team there. We put it up. No, there were no mics and speakers. Ezra got to speak, others. We were there that first weekend. And of course they were going to bring in the wrath and the police to make you feel defeated, to crush the movement. That's what they thought. But the movement is not the people that were at the trucker convoy. It's not some of the leaders that like to take the stage. The movement is not me. I'm lucky enough to be able to speak to you right now. You cannot lose hope, because all of this pushback always happens locally. The international conspirators have been around for decades, and they rebrand. They come up with new names, but they've always been around. It's not new. But when we were at 123 candidates, and my team said, it's okay, 123 out of 124 is not bad, I said, no, I am determined to get 124 candidates, because we're going to be the local pushback as to what we're going on. And someone told me there's a guy, Derek, in Nickel Belt, who supports us. And I called Derek, I said, Derek, I need a 124th candidate. And he goes, I got a great candidate, my wife, Melanie. There was no discussion about the WHO or the WEF or Davos. It's, we're going to get it done. And Derek said, we're going to get 124 candidates. I'm going to get you those signatures in 2 days, and we're going to register it. And that's what we did. And so it's not always going to be a smooth road. We got an uphill battle to climb. There's not going to be any shortcuts. But throughout history, all pushback to the conspirators is always based on local democracy and local action, and it happens meetings like this. And they don't want us to have meetings like this, but we got to keep moving forward. Don't quit. There's going to be setbacks, but if we keep pushing back, we will change the course, and we will let them know that we run Ontario and not the other way around.
Just want to add, Catherine, our very faith and our coming together makes this possible. We can't lose faith. We can't lose hope. That's what will make this work.
Your mom's awesome.
Raymond, and I'm a private journal investigator. I do it on my own time. There's one thing that has not been asked tonight that is very important. What do we do about the digital ID? Because they've already announced that this is coming out November 22nd, which means if we don't deal with this, we're all screwed before we even hit the finish line.
Excellent question. I'll walk really slow to the front.
He's ready for you.
Provincially in Ontario, we were the first to talk about digital ID in our emails back in January. In the new blueprint, we thought we had it covered with getting rid of all of the laws that Doug Ford put in place under the guise of COVID, and we've been calling it out. Good for Rick Nichols. He did a petition. We were doing a petition on critical race theory. Rick Nichols jumped forward and did a petition on digital ID to raise awareness, and it's, again, one of those issues that the more people find out what's going on, the more the pushback grows to it. And we saw in Saskatchewan they started stepping back from it, and we just need to raise awareness and keep talking about it going forward. That's why it's essential that we get Belinda reelected and other new blue MPPs, because we can do a lot on the grassroots effort, but we also need to have someone in the legislature that asks the government these questions, because you'll know this, Raymond, they don't cover this a lot in the paper and stuff. So we need an MPP, more than one MPP in the legislature, asking the government these questions and making them respond to why is this necessary and what their plans are.
Yes, yes.
Hi, my name. I worked in healthcare for a long time. I'm retired now. But Melanie mentioned it that they were going to get more PSWs. How realistically are you going to be able to get? Like Andrea Horath saying she's going to get 10,000 PSWs. Like really? But I just want to know what kind of a plan or if there's been anything in the works about getting these PSWs, because we need them. Well, we need all the nurses, RPNs, everybody. But what are they going to do about it? How are they going to attack this?
I've in my debates, in my campaigning, in my door knocking in Timiskaming Cochrane, I've had this question many times. I firmly believe that doctors, nurses, PSWs, if we can start training them in the north where we desperately need them, they will not go south to get those jobs. If we send them south for training, they're going to stay south because that's where the bulk of the jobs are. If we train them in the north, they will stay in the north. They will put down roots. They will see all the beautiful people we have here in the north. They will fall in love with us and they will want to stay here to take care of us. That's what we need. Train them here, keep them here, develop our local health care, make it strong. We need them desperately.
The other problem we have with healthcare, traditionally you hear conservatives say, we've got a spending problem. We don't have a revenue problem. We actually have a revenue problem now. In 20 years, we're growing this economy at 1%, and Doug Ford gets excited when it's 1.25 or 1.5, and he says, oh, we're doing a great job. If we don't grow this economy, starting with reducing hydro rates, lowering taxes, improving productivity, all the things that are necessary, we're not going to be able to afford increased healthcare services. They're going to cut them back in the future. And it's critical that we get our economy growing again at a greater rate than healthcare expenditures and focusing the resources on the end user, not on the bureaucracy in the system. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble in the future.
Okay, this one came from somebody in the bar. I presume they probably came and didn't know what to expect tonight. I think it's a really easy answer, but what do we do if any one of these legacy parties wins the election? I want to answer so bad, but here we go. Okay, so that's easy. I got your permission. What do? We keep moving forward. We keep going. Listen, that's a perfect question for me because I'll be the first. I told all the kids, not all of them. I've spoken with Mel. I said, hey, we might not gain very much momentum. This is maybe not a battle we can win today. But nothing worth doing in life is done overnight. Huh? So what do we mean? Thanks for the question, but we keep going. We're going to do it. And we're not going to throw a big hit. Next question.
And this is actually the first time I've seen what is called your New Blue Party. The only other one I knew of was the Ontario partner, and I didn't really know any differences between either of you, frankly. But I want to ask you just a straight question. We're heading to the June 2nd vote. I know your wife is the incumbent in that seat, and she's not a newcomer, she's more of a veteran.
Are you tired budgeting?
I'd like to ask you, a lot of things have been voiced here tonight. Some are federal jurisdiction, some are provincial jurisdiction. What are your top two priorities if you come back into the legislature in Ontario? What are the first thing you want? And then
Unites New Blue Party members and supporters is restoring integrity in our party politics. That's at the core of what we're talking about. The specific policy promises, yes, we agree on them, but at their core, it's because we have these establishment parties who have turned the political system upside down. And it's no longer about what their members say, or influencing the process, or even having a nomination where you pick your candidate. now Doug Ford, did you know the PCs got rid of voter fraud in their party? You know how they got rid of it? Doug Ford picks all the candidates. It's amazing, what an amazing idea. You just get rid of democracy and there's no more voter fraud. And that's what the PCs have figured out. At the core of the system is improving the integrity in the process, where it is no longer hijacked and controlled exclusively by the lobbyists in charge who all work together in the back from the different parties. That's number one. Number two, we have to be the party that consistently and continuously pushes the envelope and says we will not be afraid to raise the policy topics that the establishment parties don't want us or don't want anyone to talk about, and fight back on cancel culture. So broadly speaking, those are the two big, I guess, principles that I would say that we have to address. And then I think we've done a pretty good job in our first campaign to have a platform that fits on one literature piece on one side and highlights our top 6 themes of our campaign and unites people, and of course at the top is the lockdown mandate measures. So thanks, Dave, for asking.
I'm coming. Hey, you guys want to hear something about critical race theory? Everyone's bracing. What am I going to say? Race is critical. We understand that there's a lot of different races out there. Everybody looks different, comes from a different place. We teach that to our kids a little bit. If you have a question about why someone looks the way they do, why they drink tea a certain way or whatever, you ask them. If they want to tell you, they'll tell you. If they don't, they won't. And then we move on as a community. That's it. Okay, here we go. New Blue's gonna give you your job back.
I'm gonna make a statement and you'll get the question. My sister-in-law was talking to me last week where she applied for her mother to a long-term care home. The wait is 7 years. 7 years. Like I said, make your own question.
So I can sit here and tell you we need more long-term care beds, and we need more long-term care homes, and more facilities, and that's what all the political parties promise. But fundamentally, I'll go to the root cause of the problem. If the revenues of the government don't increase, and that only happens by growing the economy, we're not going to see the healthcare system and long-term care solutions for an aging population. It is a critical problem, and Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau, their only solution to growing the economy is not increasing productivity, it's not lowering hydro rates to make our Ontario and Canada more competitive. Their only solution is to bring in more people, new Canadians. That's the only way they're growing the economy at 1%. For Trudeau's entire term and Ford's entire term. If they were not bringing more people into the system, we'd actually be in negative economic growth. And so that's the only solution for government funding to increase in healthcare, including long-term care. The second solution is people need to be able to afford solutions in healthcare when the government fails. And going 20 years without tax relief, and having energy poverty with electricity rates that triple only makes people poorer. Woke and broke is actually what they're doing. And then you're handcuffed and you can't afford an alternative healthcare option for your family, alternative schooling for your kids. And so it's twofold, growing the economy and reducing taxation, and I'll even put electricity rates into taxation to make life more affordable for people in Ontario.
I left too soon over here.
Yeah, my name is Jim. I got a tough question for you. Maybe We know there's another freedom-loving, patriotic, grassroots party on the ballot next month. Okay, and I know a guy that's running for that party, and I agree with a lot of the stuff that he has to say, and we spar a bit, but basically I agree with most of what he says, and I've asked him, I says, why is it that we have to split a vote on these, to tackle these corrupt parties that we're dealing with? Why is it that you two parties have not joined forces?
So you're wrong. They're not a freedom-loving grassroots party. You cannot be a grassroots party when your membership is 0. The Ontario Party has 0 members. 0. Have you ever heard about buying a membership in the Ontario Party? Where's Derek? Derek's a member of the New Blue. Anyone else here a member of the New Blue Party of Ontario? We are accountable to these members. And then we're accountable to the voters that support us on June 2nd, and we are accountable to the constituents in the riding that the MPP represents. The Ontario Party has 0 members. They don't sell memberships in their party. They ask you for $1 million, and they hire failed lobbyists from south of the border resurrecting their campaign, but they do not have a grassroots party because they do not have members. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't know who your friend is. I wish you'd just give me his name or her name. I wish you'd tell me who it is. Okay. Jobin? Oh, LaFace, yeah. Jason wanted to run for us, and then he didn't want to go through the process, the background check, and I told him, well, if you have more than one applicant, we're going to have a nomination because we're a grassroots party. And he had 3 nominations, and I guess he didn't like the process. So I have nothing bad to say about Jason. Fundamentally, I don't know how much in the weeds we want to get on this. We reached out to Jason. I reached out. Tom Marazzo reached out to me. I had conversations with Tom back in December. Who else is there? Rick Nichols was on our board meeting for 90 minutes in the New Blue when he got kicked out. He said, Rick, why don't you run again? No, I'm done with politics. I'm not running again. Derek Sloan, I reached out to him. Had the conversations back and forth. They're not on our side. They're not. I don't know what Jason might be caught up in whatever they're doing. But the guys at the top in the Ontario Party are not on our side. And the people that pull the strings in the Ontario Party are people you'll never meet because they are in the back. And I saw some of them, and I experienced some of them in PC leadership races. And look, regardless of who you're going to believe in this back and forth tit for tat, they've been very effective in this election in doing one thing. Instead of it being articles about the New Blue fighting the establishment, it's articles like what you're saying. Oh, there's all these parties popping up and they're split, and they are confusing the issue when clearly we are in the lead. We have 124 candidates, they do not. We have lawn signs and canvassing teams in almost every riding, and we are clearly in the lead, but they've effectively sabotaged what we've been up to by confusing people and confusing some of you in this very room. And so I will leave you with this one statement for the leadership of the Ontario Party. Derek Sloan is the leader of a federal party and a leader of a provincial party in Canada. He's the only guy in Canada running for Prime Minister and Premier at the same time. One level of government is enough for us. He told Andrew Lawton in an interview that he's not committed to his own party after June 2nd. He told Andrew Lawton that. He has terrible things to say about me, but he can't explain why for almost 2 years, or almost a year while I was sick in a hospital bed, him and Rick Nichols and Randy Hillier and Max Bernier, they all worked together, okay? And they couldn't get on the same page. Randy Hillier's not running for Derek Sloan. Derek Sloan didn't want to run for Max Bernier. Why couldn't they all get on the same page if it was me and Belinda that were the issue? Fundamentally, even if you believe everything that Derek says about why they decided to start another party, after we had established over 100 candidates, it comes down to this. Under his own logic, which is not true, but let's just stick with his logic. If he's doing this for the cause, if he's doing this because he cares about the future of Ontario, and he saw a New Blue Party with close to 124 candidates when he started in January, wouldn't you, for the cause, say, there's no point of me starting another party, even if they don't have room for me, I'm gonna stake my vote and my supporters to go and say, I might not like Jim, I might not like his haircut, but vote New Blue because this is a critical election. He didn't do that. And he's not been able to explain why he has decided to do this and why he decided to register dozens of paper candidates on the last day of registration when we had already set up 124, including someone in my right, decided. And for weeks before, he was saying we're trying to get 124 candidates on paper. He can't explain why he decided to do that. All he can say is, I want to be the leader of a...
Hey! Can I just summarize what he just said? Like, we're on the winning team already. So if you're thinking Ontario Party or New Blue, then I don't know, do you want to be a winner or a loser? Just, it's up to you.
What's that?
Hi, mine's generally about the housing crisis, the rental crisis. I was lucky enough to grow up in a generation where dad worked, mom stayed home, and it was enough to sustain a family, vacations, and then some. I also raised children by myself, they're adults now. I was on the cusp. It was tough, but we had a lot more resources. I was able to pay rent. Today, nobody can pay the rents that are out there now. Not everybody can buy a house. I feel bad for single parents now, even at making minimum wage. The rents are way above what we can bring in. The stress, what it does to families, everybody, it's breaking up homes. What can you do to help this new system of poverty?
Excellent, thank you,
So the new blueprint is all about affordability, but it's not, admittedly, we should have packaged it under a separate section saying affordability. But when we're talking about reducing hydro rates, reducing taxes, we're talking about making life more affordable so that you have more from your, you have more take-home pay from the job, and under 20 years of Liberal and PC rule, costs have gone up when take-home pay has gone down, and it's going in the opposite direction. The second solution to housing affordability is we don't have enough housing options. And that has to do with slashing red tape and also making a uniform system where it's not different in each municipality where you get green lit if you're a friend of the government's, but if you're not, you have this complicated process to even do something like a renovation on your home to make more space. It's so complicated, but if you're a lobbyist, well, if you're a client of Corey Kanakis, who's Doug Ford's campaign manager, you get a facility in Cambridge, no problem. That's the second thing. The third thing is traditionally in Ontario politics, the leader of the PC party would challenge the federal Liberals. That's the way I remember it. And when the federal Liberals went wacky, the leader of the PCs, if they were the premier, would say, hey, this is not acceptable to Justin Trudeau. So when Justin Trudeau says, Doug Ford says, yay. And when it's 400,000, Doug Ford says not enough. And we're going to make it easier to get these people into a skilled trades. The increase of newcomers to Ontario, to Canada, they come into Ontario. And it drives up housing costs because the infrastructure and the options of where to live are not increasing at the same rate. And that has a lot to do with it as well. And my parents were New Canadians. I'm not, that's exactly it. My parents were New Canadians, and we're all pro-immigration. But when you increase immigration levels at that rate, you have to have the infrastructure keep up. And when the federal government's doing it and we can't keep up in Ontario, we need one established party here from every corner to say, hey, this is the impact on everyday Ontarians with what you're doing at the federal government policies. So I'm sorry it's not a short-term, quick solution. It's going to require a long-term effort, and it's multifaceted, but it's at the core of what we're talking about in terms of affordability and making people live freely with what they're earning.
Okay, someone's got to think of some questions for Mel and Sheldon over here. Okay? Who's got, if you have one, yes? Okay, good. That's where I'm going. Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And to get clean, she did all the necessary steps. I mean all, but the system failed her. They turned her away and put unrealistic and unnecessary roadblocks in the way of her getting the help she needs, and now she's dead. Does the new blueprints use anything about that, but nobody in Savoie could deny Ontario has an opioid crisis.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. What a fantastic question. Jim, we have in our downtown core white crosses. I'm not sure, you probably didn't pass it coming in here, but no doubt there's a problem here with overdose, so I'll just take the mic.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm sorry that you had to read that out in front of the crowd, in front of people you don't know. I don't know what it's like to lose a sibling, especially under those conditions, and I'm sorry. And there's nothing that I'm going to tell you now that's going to make it any better. That I can tell you for sure. We have a similar situation in Cambridge going on. We have obviously a crisis on opioids in Cambridge. And Belinda stood in the legislature and asked the Ontario government why they are not challenging the Trudeau Liberals on contaminated opium that's coming from China. And it's coming through the mail, and it's been reported even in establishment papers, like the Globe and Mail has been reporting this stuff, and you don't hear anything from the federal government or the provincial government on this matter. And Belinda challenged them on it, and boy, they were all upset in the legislature on it. The solution that they keep pushing is drug injection sites, and now the next step is safe supply, so that the government is manufacturing and paying for an alternative. Everything that we've researched and the people we've heard from, including those who used to use and now are free of it, have told us that's not the solution. Drug injection sites are not the solution, and so we're the only party talking about government to get border controls in place and getting people the help and the treatment they need, so that we're not saying to them, we don't think you can get better, and a drug injection site's the best you can do, and we know you're never going to get off it. That's not the answer. We got to give people hope, and we got to tell people we believe you can get free of this addiction, and you can get better, and the drug injection site's not the final stop for you. So thank you for asking. I'm sorry about your situation and your loss.
He's got to go. So, he's very sorry. Hey, it's a long drive. I think, how many stops did you make? You made three stops today, right? This is a man on a mission. This is a man with a plan.